Homemade crumbs are going to taste better. You'll save money.
Don't leave crumbs.
Let's make breadcrumbs.
I watched the Women's British Open at Carnoustie, which inspired me to take up the game, and found myself taking it up at university and quickly realising that I'd missed a trick and that this was a game I should have started a lot earlier. And I wanted to get really good at it as quickly as I could. And I had seen these girls at the Women's British Open, like Paula Creamer, and I remember watching Kylie Walker, and she had her whole family there. And I was like, why am I not doing this? I want to do that. And because I'd reached a pretty high standard in sport before, I just assumed that I could do this. And I thought, right, challenge accepted to myself. And I was at Glasgow University at the time, and I transferred my degree to St Andrews so that I could access better facilities and basically a free bucket of golf balls, because I was rattling through them at a pace I couldn't afford because they were like £5 a bucket. So I moved to St Andrews, got myself a range card, and blagged my way into the golf team off a handicap of 12. And at the time I'd been playing for just less than a year. And then at the end of my year in St Andrews, which was just the most fantastic year, I was playing off a handicap of 4, and I got invited down to Wentworth to be part of a scholarship programme. Clive Woodward had heard about my progress, and I'd played for Renfrewshire for my county, and basically I'd been knocking on any door I could to try and get involved in any sort of competitive golf. And just the timing was very fortuitous for me, as he had this kind of programme going on and wanted to use me as a bit of a guinea pig, really, to see how good I could get. So invited me to go down and be part of this 3-year training programme, which was to see, can someone start the game late and then still become a very high ranked professional. And our ultimate goal was, to play at the very, very top. And so off packed my bag, got my golf clubs, went to Lookers train station and got on a train and down to King's Cross. And I got picked up by Clive himself and lived in his garage for 12 weeks before I found some housemates that I could live with down south. Wow. Yeah. And he sat me down and he said, right, this is our plan, and we're going to give you 1 year to get to scratch. And if you do, we'll give you a further 2 years to receive support and coaching. As I desperately needed coaching. I was this sort of raw hockey player, like tearing it around a golf course, going like all over the place, and I was very self-taught to this point, so I needed help, and he was prepared to help find me some, and Wentworth had some fantastic coaches available. Christian Baker was my first golf coach down there, a friend of mine who I still stay in good touch with now, and I was given access to some fantastic strength and conditioning professionals, as well as people like Dave Allred and some nutritionists, you name it. There was no stone left unturned. And at the end of that year, I had broken 3 course records, and I played off a handicap of +3. So you could say it was a pretty fun year.
Some achievement, that.
So in 3 years, so just to run over that briefly, so in 3 years you went from basically not having played the game to +3, really?
Yeah.
With course records under your belt as well in the process.
Yeah,
that's insane.
A couple of, 3 course records in total, and a lot of it happened in the space of that year, and I had this like real sharp acceleration in my performance. But then unfortunately at the end of that year, it was the beginning of my wrist problems, and I started to get this niggle in my right wrist, and that would unfold, and unfortunately it just kind of got worse. I sort of managed it for the next couple of years, and I was start, stop, and trying to get the best advice I could medically. And I was like a dog with a bone. I wanted to get to our target, and the first year had been such a success that I didn't want to stop. And I never could have predicted that an injury would have. I hadn't ever had another injury in my life, so I thought, this will be fine, and I'll overcome this. But it wasn't to be, and unfortunately, it manifested to be a chronic injury that I still haven't really managed to overcome today.
That's absolutely killer. So your wrist injury, what brought that on? Was that am I right in hearing that was kind of partly a symptom of kind of over practice and playing a lot of golf and some of the kind of physical pressure you put yourself under to try and kind of continually get better over what was quite a condensed period of time? Or
yeah, I definitely think that. I think but also my background, that I played a lot of hockey, I'd played squash internationally as well, so a lot of what I had done to that point was wrist dominant and hand, wrist, arm. And then I moved into golf, and we had this mantra in our team that every hour that a golfer was putting in practice, I had to put in 3. And that wasn't always hitting balls, but a lot of the time it was. And as you guys will know, like, a golfer's temptation is always to go and hit balls and to jump straight to the big stick, onto the irons, bash, bash, bash. And I was the worst for that. And I also think that, I'm quite slight of build, and my forearms are quite slight. And I talk about this a lot now for young female professionals or young female golfers who are coming into the game, that there's a lot of research actually about wrist injuries being more prominent in female golfers. And I think this wasn't knowledge I had at the time, and I just naively sort of bashed away. And I tried to share my story with other young aspiring girls and say, make sure you're doing a lot of strength work in your forearm. Make sure you are never hit off bad quality mats. You can hit golf balls off mats, but there's a big, big difference between a mat that's got concrete underneath and a mat that's got a nice squishy surface underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
It was one winter in particular that I practiced off these mats that it was the middle of winter, it was down south, it was Baltic, and I was going through this phase of where I was told to hit a lot of balls, and I'd line the buckets up and it would be -3 degrees, there'd be no one there, and I'd be shelling eggs. And it was that winter that it flared up. So I definitely have learned a lot of lessons that people, I hope, can learn from. They don't make the same mistake that I did.